Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Welcome to Plank of the Week. It's Friday night, and this is the one place where you need to be. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by a host of talent here, Jeremy Kyle.
A host of what?
A host of talent. Almost got it out.
Happy birthday.
It is absolutely... Candice Holdsworth is also here. Will Geddes is here, the man from Uncle, I suppose you could call you. And Chloe Dobbs, welcome back to you. And we've got, I should say, as you can see to my left, a £250 cake. This is the 250th anniversary of Plank of the Week. It's the
That's
250th
extraordinary.
show.
No, I mean, that is extraordinary.
Isn't that amazing?
I feel honoured to be here.
And you were involved from the very beginning,
I
Will.
was.
So, you know, you've been around for a long time. Jeremy's been around for quite a long time. Jeremy, you're off and running to the horses with the NHS.
I have to say, hospitals in this country, NHS hospitals, in the last 12 months have written off £256.4 million owed by foreign patients because they weren't checked before the operations were carried out whether they were entitled to free NHS treatment. One Nigerian patient at Barts in London ran up a nigh on £500,000 bill, 500 grand. A Romanian patient owes Lewisham and Greenwich Hospital Trust 71 grand. They're called healthcare tourists, right?
Yeah.
So they come here, and I know this for a fact. One of my dearest friend's father is a heart surgeon.
Yeah.
He says Friday and Saturday nights appalling. They come on the planes, they've got a problem, they have an operation, they bugger off. Wow. It's the same story as last week when we found out that we spent £83 million on interpreters. And I simply want to ask this question. Can you imagine a country in the world where you and I would go, any of us, and go, I know I can't speak your language and I paid absolutely bugger all into your system, but I'd like a heart operation, then I'm going home. We are a laughing stock. And for the people that go, it's just 250 million, that is a sixth of the amount of money they took from pensioners to keep them warm this winter.
Exactly
it's
right.
disgusting.
And I know from talking to people that work in the NHS, nurses in particular, who would say if you work in a maternity ward, the number of foreign mothers that are coming in to give birth...
250 million quid, we'll just get rid of it. It's like the net zero thing. We don't care.
But
this
Jeremy,
is appalling.
I thought they'd actually cracked down on healthcare tourism a few years back because this was an issue during the Conservatives period.
Yeah.
And I thought there was this whole issue, particularly in post-COVID, that they would turn around and say, OK, we've really got to clamp down on this because it's been leveraged so heavily with obviously all these patients going in, blah, blah, blah. I thought they'd dealt with it.
Well,
but
they said that
not.
what was supposed to happen was that
these are current figures.
People were supposed to be given a bill, basically. But, of course, the doctors in the NHS, because they're all lefties, have said, well, we're not giving them a bill. And nobody in the hospital is going to give them a bill. So they never give them a bill.
But like in America, you give your credit card and your insurance details before they'll actually do anything with you.
Yeah. That's the point, though, isn't it? That with everything that happens, with the problems with migration and how stretched our public services are, more and more people are looking at that and going, we're becoming a laughing stock. We're so soft. There are so many loopholes. You come to this country, you can get everything. And my argument will always be, that's all well and good, right, if we can afford it. But we can't even afford the interest on the debts that we owe. And in my mind, we should be looking after people in this country.
Absolutely
That's
I'm sure any listeners who are on some long waiting list for a surgery are listening to that and absolutely fuming. I mean, I don't understand how this is being allowed to happen, because apparently a lot of these cases are where they haven't checked before giving them a surgery or something, whether they are qualified for free treatment or not. I mean, surely when you go into the hospital, the first thing they say is, what's your name, what's your date of birth? And they look at your NHS number and check that you
don't actually go to a shop, do you, in this country, am I allowed to say a person from Britain? And go, I'd like that kitchen, I'm not going to give you a deposit, I'm not giving you anything. It's ridiculous. And what makes it so much worse is it's almost laughed off by this government and the past government. They go, it's just 256 million.
because it's not their money. It's not their money.
No,
they don't
it's
care.
our money, though.
It's monopoly money as far as they're concerned.
Candice, over to you. You've got Harriet Haynes and Lucy Smith, two women who are not as other women.
Yes, two very delicate...
balls, please.
Yes, two very delicate ladies. So this is the latest in gender madness. Yes, it still goes on, and this time in the world of pool.
Yes.
So there was a women's pool final a few weeks ago. I can't claim to be an expert on pool. I don't know exactly who was competing in it. But what I do know is that in the finals, two men reached it. So it was a women's pool final. That's what it was. But there were two men.
Now, and it didn't go particularly well because throughout the tournament, people were in the audience going, he's a man! He's a man! Look at how strong his right-hand grip is on the cue!
Sorry, Jeremy, that was me again.
Fancy a quick game of pool, Lucy? Yeah, all right then. Come on, Harriet, let's have a go. Give me a £5.
Come on, Doris.
All right? I mean, what is going on?
But what was crazy is people said, but they don't have any advantage. It's pool. Apparently that is not true.
Like bigger hands, apparently.
Men are taller, longer arms.
I believe the ability also, and I did this on the show, to get you, and do not laugh, the length of them. Most men are taller. The ability to mount the table and stretch further and get your legs further.
That's what they all said. That's what the women
It's all in the
said.
mouth.
We had Sharon Davis on, and she said, the people that argue about is there an advantage, that's not the point.
Right.
There are female pool players who have spent years practicing being beaten by a bloke, and you wouldn't see them, by the way, entering a male tournament.
Also,
That's the argument.
It's the only reason that I don't know which one this is, whether it's Lucy or Harriet.
It's Pete.
It's Lucy,
George.
apparently, with a ponytail. Does that make you a woman now? I've got a ponytail, so now I'm going to identify as a woman.
I mean, it's minimal effort.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
never mind about the genitalia scenario. There's just a ponytail. I mean, there's plenty of blokes with ponytails.
The only way you can tell, right?
Yeah.
But forget the ponytail. We'll just there you go.
It's one of
You're not
those.
entering it.
The differences between men and women are so complex. A lot of these trans activist idiots think it's just as simple as, just switch up the hormones a bit and that will make it a completely level playing field.
Yeah.
But it is so complex that the way our brains work and everything. So, I mean, for example, men have quicker reaction times than women. So when it comes to reacting to the last move on the pool table or, a lot of people say, chess, there's nothing physical about chess. You can't possibly...
Are you saying men are better at chess than women?
Yeah, they probably are, because you've got to react very quickly to what the other person has done. And men have quicker reaction times than
But I always want to ask that. I said this just then, probably not loud
Steady,
enough.
Michael.
Sorry.
The people that say there's no advantage, explain to me why Lucy and Dave there, or whatever they
What are the
why
odds?
don't
What are
they
the
enter
odds?
a male
I
pool
think
contest?
you've absolutely hit the nail on the head, because the big question is, why are there two blokes playing in a women's pool tournament?
Never get
End
two
of story.
women playing in
End
a
of story.
bloke's one,
No,
do you?
that's the only question
don't.
I've got, right?
Yeah.
And
What is going on?
Is it coincidence that the two biological males managed to reach the final out of everyone competing?
Precisely.
Obviously, they have an advantage.
They must have, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And what happens if you pot the white ball off the black? Do you still lose if you're a trans pool player? Or is there a different law?
It is a different law. You have to select the hole to which the ball's going down.
Over to you.
Yes, sir. Who am I? Of my two beautiful nominations, which one would you like first, sir?
Well, prison service, I think, would be the one to start with.
Okay.
If you'd been listening earlier, you'd have known that, but you obviously weren't.
I wasn't paying attention.
Don't worry.
So, Lucy Connolly.
Oh, yes.
So, we're all aware of the Southport riots and everything that kicked off, obviously, around that terrorist attack or motivated attack by an individual that had
She looks like a dangerous
terrorist
girl,
connections.
doesn't she? Lock her up for 3 years.
Bless her heart. She, like many people around that time, aired their dissatisfaction, their unhappiness, certainly connected to this horrific attack, obviously, on
Which
children.
was horrific.
It was a horrific attack. And then the ultimate coward of this country, Keir Starmer, issues a statement. And I'll go for what his statement was the police will be making arrests, individuals will be held on remand, charges will follow, and convictions will follow. Those are the exact words he came out with. Now, Lucy put out a tweet which basically said that the people who were being housed in hotels should be dealt with, because again it was attributed to someone that the information being passed around on social media was someone that was an illegal immigrant that had come into the country. In fact, it turned out to be far worse, and ultimately then regretted that tweet, deleted it.
Within an
hour, then deleted her Twitter account as well. The police, however, had screenshotted it. She was then sentenced. She went to court. She was not told to basically plead not guilty. She was told to plead guilty, which would enable her to be released. She's been held for some 36 months, I think it is.
31 months.
31 months. No licence to be released early, unlike many of her...
She was even refused permission to go and visit at the weekend her young daughter...
Who's now having mental health issues.
And her husband, who's suffering, I think, from cancer.
And then ultimately... So hang on, Jeremy. Hold on. Hold the reins. And then ultimately from there... she has basically just been cast to one side by a judicial system that has been entirely and blatantly influenced by political persuasion.
Absolutely.
And I have to say, this country, led by Keir Starmer, is showing the cowards that are in government right now. Jeremy.
Just three things, really. The first is a fact. The government, led by the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary, knew exactly who was responsible for those murders, and they did not release it.
Correct.
And whilst that fire of disastrous social media stuff took aim, right? I do not condone what Lucy Connolly said at all. You might want to know, by the way, that she'd lost a child in quite horrific circumstances.
She had.
And probably that would... But what got me about this story this week was that the exact day we were talking about it, you know about the woman in Syria, right?
Yes.
So she leaves her kid and husband in the middle of England and goes to Syria 6 months ago to join ISIS.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't like it, she's got herself a left-wing human rights lawyer that we're paying for, who are using the excuse under the ECHR that her kid is sick and she's going to be allowed back because she needs medical care, which ties into the NHS story. Lucy Connolly, it was ridiculous what she said, but would it not be better to take something like her and say, put you in a community and teach you how you were wrong and spend time with that community?
You know, she doesn't need
unbelievably
and she wasn't offered that.
No,
whereas many will be given rehabilitation training to sit her down and say, here is the error of your ways, try not to do it, you're going to incite violence. There was none of that offered to her.
And she happens to be the one that most people talk about. Liz Truss even said this week that she should be released.
Exactly.
She's done enough time already. You know, what's the harm in letting her go to spend time with the family? But there's others as well who are not as well known as her, who have also been stuck
It was like the bloke on that you were telling us from Times Ready, the producer, was 6 police turned up at his house because he complained about a teacher on a WhatsApp group.
Maxie Allen.
We are becoming a laughing stock, I think.
Add to that, Jeremy, then you've also got the government quite recently asking and enforcing Apple to remove the advanced data protection encryption that allows the argument here, and again, I'm in the security world. I'm all for catching bandits and bad guys and terrorists and everything else. But the argument by the state was it was to protect the state that they removed that. But what it now allows them to do is basically to get into all the encrypted chats that anybody who's using the iOS, the Apple platforms, they can look at all of your data without permission.
Yeah. Lack of respect.
They don't
is
look
freedom.
I'll give
the government has become completely obsessed with adolescents. So I'm sure that what will happen with this new scheme
TV show,
is that rather than actually catching people who are proper criminals, they'll say any boy that has looked up an Andrew Tate podcast, that's it, right, straight on the killers list. We'll get him arrested. He's going to start stabbing people.
Right. They don't actually want to sort the problem out of why people are stabbing each other and who's doing the stabbing and who are the victims, because only this weekend...
And we're locking up people like Lucy Connolly.
Another young black man, 17 years of age, stabbed to death in Shepherd's Bush. Another young teenage black boy arrested for stabbing him. And another black kid stabbed, thankfully not life-threateningly. But, this is happening all the time. Don't want to do a summit on that. Let's have a summit about a TV show on Netflix. It's left-wing. And it's all about bad white people.
But add to that,
do me a favour.
Just to really put a cherry on the cake here, you've got Keir Starmer on the 250th anniversary cake. To add to that, you've got the issue that Keir Starmer, through his two-tier policing, they've arrested in excess of 400 people in regards to the Southport riots. Have they done anything about a national inquiry on the rape gangs in this country?
Well, we're coming to that. We're coming to the rape gangs in this country, funnily enough, because that's one of my nominations. But let's not forget, when he was letting all these people out of prison in order to put some of these people in, because they were, had
said hurty words
the
on social media.
law, right? Remember the one guy that they let out who was a killer who came out and killed somebody after he was released. Like the same day.
And there was another guy who raped a woman.
There was another guy who was in for sexual offences who came out and committed more sexual offences on the very day they let him out. But instead, got to make room for some people who've said some hurty tweets.
I think she's a sacrificial lamb.
She is. I feel so bad for her. Absolutely awful.
And the thing is, this is a mother who not only has a little girl to look after, but she is the carer to her sick husband. So presumably now, she is not able to provide that care to her sick husband, and the husband, I'm guessing, is not really capable, given he's ill, to take care of the young daughter.
Imagine this: if she had left the United Kingdom, this is what turns my stomach to join ISIS. She could have grabbed a lawyer last week and gone, "My kid's sick, my husband's got mental problems." She'd be back here in a heartbeat.
And it was her first offence as well.
You can imagine, nobody goes to prison for first offence. It just doesn't happen.
And she's already been held on remand.
But luckily, there's always a punishment for somebody who makes a threat of violence against a politician. Have a look at this.
Unpleasant characters are being thrown to the fore, and they're very, very easy to hate. And I'm kind of thinking, why bother with a milkshake when you could get some battery acid?
And that's Joe Brand talking about throwing battery acid on Nigel Farage.
So if you were in a WhatsApp group, you'd be arrested, but Joe Brand walks free,
Joe Brand said that on national radio, Radio 4. Everybody that heard it was pretty appalled, but nothing ever happened to her.
Although I have had the honour of seeing her do stand-up and get booed off stage.
Really?
Yeah, that was
Some
great.
people say she looks like me.
That's not
I
very
don't see
kind
anyone
to you,
denying
Michael.
it. Excuse me.
That's not very kind to you.
No, I know it's not. But when people say, who's the Mike Graham look like? They go, Joe Brand.
I think you're more Robert Redford.
Thank you very much.
With
Have you had your eyes
with a
tested
touch
lately?
of Paul Newman.
My glasses are upstairs.
Yeah, glasses are upstairs. Chloe Dobbs, over to you.
My nomination
Yes.
is the parliamentary authorities
Yes.
because they have wasted 60 grand of your taxpayer money on, you won't believe it,
Go on.
spies to walk around the corridors in Westminster to find out if the security staff are racist. So there has been...
Oh, my God.
There's been a report that says that the security staff stop people of colour more often to check their passes.
Get out,
and
Geddes.
apparently this
now.
is a huge travesty because that would be a microaggression to stop people of colour more often to check their passes. So they need to waste 60 grand on these spies, which are kind of like mystery shoppers, to go around and count how often their passes are checked by security passes. And I presume they're expecting that all the people of colour that they send around will be checked constantly because all the security staff in Westminster, I'm sure, are extremely racist. And they're not interested in checking the passes of
Well, he's called Black Rod, isn't he?
Well, he is. There you go.
I mean, Black Rod's in trouble.
Black Rod's in a lot of
To
trouble.
be honest, how many of the eavesdropping conversations where there were racial slurs made that actually came from security rather than the MPs themselves? I'm sure the MPs
do you
outweighed
know what breaks my heart genuinely? And I now got slaughtered this week for defending Lucy Connolly. People said that what she said was awful. I get that, right? They will spend that money, right, to look for something that is so obviously not there. And this kid's languishing in jail with her family in trouble. I hate saying every day, but
And
we're
what's the
becoming a
point as well
disgrace.
of looking for something which may or may not be there on the basis that somebody thinks it might be there?
Just to justify their own pathetic ideology.
And why are you wasting
It's a box
money
tick,
on it?
Mike. That's all it is. I mean, these kind of nonsense. I've come across these kind of nonsense things before, and it is literally a box tick. It's like, oh no, we're good. You know, we're pariahs.
Oh, so we can actually, we've done a study.
We've done our study.
Found that, guess what? The security guards at the House of Parliament are not racist.
We've done a study, and you're the worst Prime Minister ever in government, and you have a two-tier justice system.
Yeah.
That's our study on Plank of the Week.
And eroding any privacy that we have.
Absolutely right. And can you imagine when Starmer sat in the Oval Office and said directly to J.D. Vance and to Donald Trump, oh, we've had freedom of speech for many, many centuries in Britain, and we still have it.
We're ruining it now.
Every single week we find out, actually, we don't have free speech in this country anymore.
Exactly.
And J.D. Vance was entirely correct to point that out.
He said, I'm quite proud of that,
Yeah, I know.
I'm quite proud of that,
I know.
actually.
I mean, that was macho Keir Starmer, wasn't it? Until he took the letter out of his pocket. Letter for you from the King.
Oh, no.
Would you like to read it now?
Would you like to read it now?
It was just like...
My hand on your shoulder and gently rub it. I mean, still gives you the creep. Anyway,
He's
coming
like
up...
a weird uncle, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
At the party that nobody wants to
I don't know how.
Too many sherries.
Uncle Fister. Sorry, I mean Fester.
I don't know how Starmer...
Uncle Fister gave you a blister. Oh, Uncle Fister.
I've never sat down properly since I met Uncle Fister.
That was the slip of the tongue. Obviously, I didn't mean that. Anyway, coming up, listen, we're going to talk about the rape gangs because that's one of my nominations.
Cherry stuff.
And of course, immigration judges are going to get some as well. It's all coming up next on Plank of the Week.
Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Welcome back to Plank of the Week. We've already got off to a smashing start, has to be said. Smashing the snuggling guns.
I think the high point was Uncle Fister.
Well, it was. I'm really pleased you deliberately repeated it just in case we got away with it the first time. But it's now time for my first nomination, and I'm going to nominate Jess Phillips, the Labour MP,
Home
Office Minister, right? A woman who spends her life telling us how she protects young women and girls, right? She reads out every year, it used to be a party piece, I know she's going to do it this year. She used to read out a list of women who had been killed by their partners in Parliament, and it was a really tedious kind of moment where everybody kind of went, well, of course, everybody's upset about it. It's an important issue, blah, 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 blah. But this week, right, the reason she's made it onto Plank of the Week is that this week she was the one that the government chose to stand up in the House of Commons with literally 40 minutes left of the final session of Parliament before they shut down for Easter and had the Easter recess. And basically she said, we've decided that no matter what we said we were going to do, we're not going to have a national inquiry into the rape gangs. Because at the end of the day, we're going to change direction because we've taken advice, she said. She wouldn't say where she got the advice from, but I can't imagine she got it from the poor people who were the victims of these ghastly rape gangs, right? Pakistani grooming gangs, let's call them what they are. And she was eviscerated by a new MP who I'd never seen before, called Katie Lam.
It was brilliant.
Who was fantastic.
Yeah, I saw that.
She got up in Parliament. She's a Tory MP for somewhere in Kent, I think. Have a look at what she said.
The girls we are talking about, Mr. Speaker, are predominantly white. The men who preyed on them were predominantly Muslim, generally either from Pakistan or of Pakistani heritage. One of the victims from Dewsbury was told by her rapist, I quote, "We're here to all the white girls and the government." Will the Minister accept that, in many cases, these crimes were racially and religiously aggravated?
I find Jess Phillips to be a pretty odious individual, to be honest. I think she's a hypocrite. She knows who her kind of voters are.
Yeah.
She nearly lost her seat because of all the Muslims who didn't vote for her over Gaza.
Yep.
She won it by a wafer-thin margin. And I just think, for all of the... somebody called it today, I think, when I was doing my show, one of the biggest scandals ever in the history of British politics, and it really is.
I think it's disgusting. We broke this yesterday, didn't we?
Yeah.
5:15 on Drive. You're in a position where they turned down an independent national inquiry in January, and they said they'd have 5 locally led investigations. That's gone. They're going to work with local authorities. It is an absolute disgrace, as Mike said about those victims, and it does beg the question. I mean, it was so sly.
Yeah.
Nothing from Starmer, nothing from Yvette. I actually know Jess Phillips. Yeah. Whether she's been sold down the river, I don't know. But there is principle, and I would say to Jess Phillips, if she was sat here, you should have resigned.
She should resign.
If you care
she
about
shouldn't
it,
have done this.
then you should have said, that's not good enough. What I find unbelievably despicable is that I fear it's a cover-up, and I fear it is a political decision made because the Labour Party are terrified that they will lose a certain vote in this country. And if that is how justice is going, yet another example. What does that say about us?
Yeah, but I think also, Jeremy, I think taking it beyond that, I think there's only one conclusion we can draw to this, which is there is incrimination to individuals, some MPs that would have been complicit in these activities.
Well, I don't even know if it's that, or they don't want to lose a certain vote, the Muslim vote. I think he makes the point.
We're now finding out as well that some police were involved in it. Just recently,
or even participants.
Senior police officers have been charged with, not just knowing about it, but possibly taking part in the raping of these young women. Some of whom are so badly injured that they'll never recover.
And you want to say to Jess Phillips, you did quite good work about stalking and about women's rights. We know a couple of activists like that. They should be in her face saying, what about those young girls whose lives were blighted forever because they were raped? Do you know what? I don't even care about the colour of the man that raped them. I don't care that it took the police 8 years. You as a woman, I have this argument every week. When women, they talk about women's rights, and I support that. But when the transgender thing happens or something like this, not one bloody one of them sticks their head above the parapet.
Because it's a difficult conversation to have, and they can't handle that. Right. They don't want that. They just want applause. They want to be thought of as a good person for raising these issues. They don't really want to fight for something and have a difficult conversation where you might lose a little bit, but ultimately you know.
And also, I mean, Chloe, let me ask you, why would it be the case that the Muslim population of this country would somehow take offence if Jess Phillips said, actually, no, we're going to have a national inquiry, we're going to order it from right now, we're going to go into Muslim communities, we're going to fish people out who are guilty of these crimes, and we're going to prosecute them? How would that be somehow upsetting to ordinary law-abiding Muslims?
Well, I think that the reality is that the proportion of Muslims in this country that have committed these horrendous crimes is teeny tiny.
Then why doesn't the majority of Muslims stand up and say what they feel is wrong about that? Because that would help the whole situation, wouldn't it?
Well, I think there are a couple of issues here. So, I mean, first of all, the Labour Party, they are concerned that if they do this inquiry that points out that the vast majority of people involved in this were Pakistani Muslims, that will lead to a spike in Islamophobia. We hear about worries about community tensions, right?
Is it that or they'll lose seats? I'm being serious. I'm being straight with you.
I think that they could lose seats as well, right? So 80 out of 89 of the seats in this country that have a Muslim population that's over double that of the national average are held by the Labour Party. Yeah. We had Jess Phillips and Wes Streeting on a knife edge with these independent pro-Gaza MPs. Yeah. They are terrified. And it's not just the MPs, right? We've got council elections coming up. Do not forget that it is pretty much mostly Labour-run councils where there have been cover-ups, right? Yeah. They do not want to be investigated. The only reason why Oldham is going to have an inquiry is because Labour have lost power in Oldham.
But that's the other problem with,
I think that's
with all
really
of this, right? Is that, you know, we've already had criminal cases. Lots of people have been locked up. Maybe not all of them, and not many of them. And there's more to come. But there hasn't been some mad outbreak of Islamophobia. No, people haven't gone around setting fire to people's houses.
So, Mikey, kids can get raped, and people can break the law, but we'll turn a blind eye in this country because we might upset people. Yeah, and we might lose a seat.
I mean, to follow off on your own point and your point, Jeremy, which is about the self-policing issues. Let's draw some parallels here. So the vast majority of the Pakistani Muslim community are probably not involved, you know, and are very likely not involved.
Most of those who are involved from a very small part of Pakistan,
well, exactly.
Funny enough, where one MP wants an airport built.
Funny that, yeah. Wow. But also,
is that the one who's avoiding rats in Birmingham whilst trying to raise money to build an airport in Kashmir?
Yeah, exactly.
But if you draw some parallels, let's go back to some of the terrorism activities. And one of the things that I said a long time ago, and thankfully, not probably from my words, but certainly from a universal belief, a lot of the Muslim communities started looking at terrorists within those radicals within their own communities and self-policing them. Far better that you do it within that community than anything else. So why isn't some of the community leaders, the Pakistan Muslim leaders in certain communities, not leading the charge in outing those individuals that are perpetrating these horrific acts?
Well, one thing that's been observed with this is that actually the Pakistani community is so close-knit that one problem you've got with accountability is that they'll have people who, let's say they're thrown in prison for 2 years. As soon as they come out, the Pakistani community welcomes them back with open arms, even though they know the horrendous
crimes. They're not sort of castigated.
One of the good things in Islam is that there is more of a focus on community and family and taking care of each other, but that's clearly gone so far that they are willing to take in someone and be kind and loving to them and welcome them straight back into their community if they have, you know, abused
raped
little
white children.
Because
apparently
whereas
that's
if it was,
okay.
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I mean, I've spent some time in those parts of the world, and I've seen those communities where they will actually sort of isolate those individuals that are committing crimes against women, against children, and they won't condone it. They will push them to one side. They will, you know, certainly.
They're not doing it here.
But they're not doing it here.
Isn't it about the problem? The difference between right and wrong? We're sitting here discussing that politicians think it's okay to protect their own seat.
Correct.
By trading innocent young girls who are raped. These aren't grooming gangs. These are, Mike's so right, child rape gangs. Yeah. And whoever is responsible, I don't care whether you're a politician, a judge, a Muslim person, I don't care. You should go to bloody prison.
Exactly.
It's disgusting.
But of course, we've got two-tier justice, but there we are. Yeah. Jeremy Kyle, over to you. You've got Westminster Council for
Well, I did, to be honest, I was given this by Chuck, but this is, I mean, I'm just going to sit here open mouthed because I'm going to leave this studio in about half an hour and think that this world has gone nuts. Westminster Council, planks of the week, ladies and gentlemen, have told staff to take an online quiz to check, ready for this, if they're hiding white privilege. You'll have to... what does that mean? So in essence... If you answer, so the way you answer scores
I'm having
points,
a look for mine.
And you don't want to score a lot of points.
No.
So if I said to you, are you a white male?
Yes.
Well, that's 15 points, and that's not very
good.
Really? So you're a white supremacist, probably.
Right.
And you've got to answer questions like yes or no to the following things. Mike Graham. My parents used to read to me when I was a child.
Yes.
Disgusting. 15 points.
That's 30 I've got now. Brilliant.
I've never been stopped and searched by the police.
Correct.
We had to think there, both
of us. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think
search or arrested.
I've been arrested. No, sorry. We're not going there.
I was pulled off a bus once.
Yeah.
It is again very much like your great story earlier, Chloe. It's this madness that spends money and time trying to tick boxes of, white privilege. Yeah. We've got kids, girls being raped. We've got people screwing the National Health Service. We've got pensioners
people stabbing
freezing.
Each other.
We've got people stabbing each other. We've got... This is completely irrelevant, but I just want to say this. It was at Newcastle Airport. I want to tell you this last Sunday, and I met a really nice young couple. They just had a baby. They were going to Portugal for 5 days. Serving British Army. I was so proud just meeting this kid. He'd come from the back streets, Pontyland, not Pontyland, the worst part of Newcastle, and his family were proud of him, and he's in the army, and he's got... And she said to me, in their barracks, I won't even mention where it is, Catterick, he said recently, servicemen and women, veterans, have been moved out on the base and made homeless, and migrants have been moved.
No way.
No. This kid's 26. He loves talk. He loves you. He listens all the time. Right. And it sort of inspired me because I thought maybe it isn't just us. The 26-year-old selling. He said about some of this stuff, he said, Jess, what's happened to this country? And that made me actually quite think that it's not just us that's good.
Oh, no, I think there are a lot of people waking up to the fact that we have somehow lost the plot in this country. And a lot of people, thankfully, think that we haven't actually lost it altogether and we can get the plot back. We just have to keep remembering that.
But you're a major part of that because you were the first one. We would never... No, you couldn't talk about immigration 10 years ago and now on a programme and there's 250 in. You can actually say and call this out and people watch it in their loads because they know it makes sense, Mikey.
Because it's true. And, you know, if you go listening, and I don't even watch it anymore, the BBC, but if you watch the BBC News, you wouldn't think any of this stuff was going on because they don't report it.
No.
They have got no interest at all in reporting anything which is thought to be vaguely offensive to any minority.
Or just true.
Yeah, or true. Or in some way might kind of, encourage people to be white supremacists, like you say.
But they'd rather support that nice humanitarian group, Hamas.
They'd rather not talk about all the young black kids getting stabbed to death because it might be a diversity issue. Absolutely ridiculous.
Everybody's got so sensitive.
But who gets into journalism to be so polite? I mean, what is the point? Like, really, what is the point?
Jeremy, I'm still trying to figure out what white privilege actually is.
Apparently, you're privileged if you're white. So, if you're a white male,
I'd like them to walk into some of the parts of the northeast of England which are very poor. And I think you and I know which parts we're talking about in Newcastle. And I remember going to do a show in one of those places, and there were no cars parts of the street because why? Because people can't afford cars. And there literally aren't any.
I mean,
and
you're right.
There was a cut price. Greg's. So it was like Greg's food that was about to go off that they were selling as like a Greg's outlet store. That's how poor it was.
I'll give you a quote from one of my best friends who came from the worst part of Newcastle and has done really well for himself, but has never forgotten his roots. And yesterday, when we were doing the Muslim story, the gangs, he sent me this. They have just again sold their souls to the devil, Jez. How can these people sleep at night? I'm beyond angry. This is to save the Muslim vote and nothing else. But they choose to treat us like fools. If you have a pulse in your body and have any sense of humanity, a full national inquiry is ending. Shame on everyone, including Jess Phillips. This country's going down the toilet. This is a self-made man who would know a struggle more than anybody in this room, anybody I know.
Totally.
And it's that people think... This is what people think now.
I mean, there was polling done on how many people want a national inquiry, and it was, the vast majority of the country. And I feel like we're in a position now where, the country is at breaking point, and I don't know what's going to happen next.
And the politicians don't get it, do they?
But you're saying that because you've got white privilege. That's more important than a national inquiry into kids being raped.
That's the thing is, we've got a complete democratic crisis in this country where people keep on telling politicians what they want, whether it's immigration, whether it's a rape gang inquiry, right? And nothing ever happens, no matter how they vote, right? We had riots last year. I don't condone rioting, but I at least, unlike Keir Starmer, can recognise why it's happening. These people, they voted time and time again for lower immigration, and the politicians won't do it. So people, they felt helpless. And they thought, you know what, I've got no option but to go to the streets and to riot. I wouldn't do such a thing, but I understand why they did it, right?
Absolutely.
And what are we going to have happen now? If the politicians do not do anything whatsoever about the grooming gangs and give absolutely no justice for these victims, the population are crying out for it, yet they're not willing to do it because they're worried about setting up... So they're worried about upsetting some small proportion of the population that might be worried about Islamophobia.
I know, it's absolutely bonkers. Well, let's see if we can find a politician that's got any hope for the future. Check this out.
Oh, yes, it is.
Well,
Boris Johnson getting attacked by an emu. Sorry, it's an ostrich. Possibly the funniest clip we've had this year.
Love that.
But what sort of idiot goes? You've probably done this. You take the kids to the safari park and the monkeys jump on and start.
You don't open your window.
No, you don't open a bloody window.
Do you?
No.
I think it was an anti-Brexiteer dressed up as an ostrich.
Or one of his ex-wives maybe dressed up as an ostrich.
I think it was the hair. I think the ostrich thought that his hair was. It was a sort of a mammal or something ridiculous.
I know.
It went straight in for him. It was like,
I know.
Get you.
Candice, over to you.
Well, we've spoken about it quite enough, but we've got a bit more in immigration madness this week. It's not quite at the level of chicken nuggets, but it comes pretty close. So apparently we learned this week that an immigration tribunal ruled that a Jamaican criminal could not be deported back to Jamaica because his criminal record was so bad here that he would suffer in Jamaica if he was sent back.
What?
This is someone who had claimed asylum here, and while he was claiming asylum, committed loads of crimes, was jailed twice, and as soon as he got out, they wanted to deport him, and they can't now because he'll suffer when he goes back. This man who's come here and committed all these crimes.
My understanding is he went to prison for 9 years for raping a woman, right?
Yeah.
And so we're going to keep this man in the country, causing, posing a danger to the women of this country. We've seen how many stories like this. I mean, we even had a case of a Syrian who couldn't be put in prison here in the UK. We weren't even talking about deportation at this point. We're just talking about putting him in prison because he had sexually assaulted a teenager. Why couldn't we put him in prison? Because he's got PTSD from going to prison under the Assad regime because so horrible.
I'm going. I'm
so
sorry.
leave him to roam the streets and endanger little young
Migrant
girls because we don't want to trigger his PTSD.
You have to listen to this in the morning.
There's one every day. Migrant of the day. There's one every day who can't be either deported or put in prison or has to be able to be allowed to see his children.
It's not even funny though. Lucy Connolly's in jail.
I know.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. It's literally unbelievable. And I say it every time we do this show, but my favourite is still the Nigerian psychopath who claims that he can't be deported back to Nigeria, who's a rapist, I think, because he's been possessed by the devil.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Right?
Yeah.
And I mean, for God's sake.
And the devil was presumably in the United Kingdom, which is why he's got to stay.
That's why he's got to stay here.
He didn't bring him with him.
Yes.
But who are these people at the immigration tribunals who are like, yes, no, I get it.
It's money, it's left-wing lawyers, it's the ECHR.
No, but don't worry, though, because we've got a plan, right? The government have been speaking to France, and they've put up a barrier to stop people from coming into the country.
This is such a good week.
This is over in France. Check this out.
That barrier is open all day. It's only closed at night. I wonder if the people smugglers have watches or can look at the sky and tell the sodding time or not. But I reckon we'll go to the barrier when it's open, not closed. And B, this is beyond belief. Genuinely, this is a flat bit of road next to flat green fields. There is no fence. They can simply drive around the gate.
I mean,
that's epic.
That is a gate that you would not bother with, would you? I mean, it's like putting a gate on.
Who even manned? It's not even manned.
You can imagine a gate in a field, right? In the middle of a field with all the grass around it to stop a bull from getting out.
What I don't understand is
you wouldn't do it.
The money that was spent on it. I mean, who gave the approval when they saw the schematic and said, "Okay, here we go. We've got a gate." Got nothing else to support it, just the gate.
Somebody said
we'll give you the money.
Which I thought, because we were absolutely on this yesterday, because you can walk around, fly over the top, it's not manned, the barrier's up. Lee Anderson from Reform said, so basically it's a free entry into Europe from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.
This way, must have put up an arrow on the road.
I think it was Ben Habib who said to me, I think this is a P-tape by the French.
Yeah,
I think
it is.
They deliberately want more and more to come, because we're so thick.
Well, they don't want them.
Can you help us and we'll give you a bit more money?
Yeah.
The French
500 million for that.
The French are taking us for absolute fools. I've been there speaking to migrants, and they're all taking cash, all the police and everything from the people smugglers, not just the police, but everyone up to EU officials. That's where all that money goes, right? And I was there talking to people, like French are telling us, we'll have your £500 million to stop the boats, right? And they were giving all these migrants letters saying, you've got 7 days to leave the country. Go figure. So a deportation letter with no deportation flight or train, basically saying, get on a lorry, get on a boat. You're not allowed to put in an application to claim asylum here.
Absolutely shocking. Listen, we've got to move on because we're running out of time. And coming up, we've got a college in the limelight. Also, we've got an airline in the limelight as well. It's all coming up next on Plank of the Week.
Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Welcome back to Plank of the Week. Mr. Will Geddes, over to you. Nottingham College.
So I think I have the winner.
Really?
Okay, I think I definitely have the winner here. Because I think, just to add to all the misery and depression that we've all culminated now from the previous stories, this one takes the little biscuit. And I think it's in an indication that should World War III happen, which it seems it will, we are absolutely screwed. Okay? So, do any of you suffer from what we call telephobia? Which is
telephobia.
Telephobia. Okay.
This is a new one.
So this is the
fear of television.
Fear of taking phone calls or making phone calls. Okay. So Nottingham College, in its infinite wisdom, and I hope Chuck's got the clip of this because it's absolute gem.
We have actually got a clip. Have a look.
Brilliant.
These students are learning how to make a phone call.
Okay. So the phone's ringing, Naya. Pick it up whenever you're ready.
Hello.
Hello, hi. We actually encourage our students to make phone calls, like ring a restaurant and find out what time they're opening, call a shop and ask if they have a certain item in stock.
These classes have been set up to tackle telephobia, which is the fear of making or taking phone calls.
For some Gen Z and millennials, phone calls aren't just outdated, they're anxiety-inducing.
I usually have my phone on silent because I don't like the sound of it ringing because it makes me nervous.
Jesus Christ.
So, Michael...
What's wrong with them?
There is this course, and I'm sure it's not the only one in the country. I literally have nothing more to say about it. I'm sorry.
You can say.
There is nothing more I need to say other than this is a worthy
I thought
winner.
Jeremy was going to walk out of the studio there. I mean,
honestly, I don't know. I started as a salesman. We co-called. I'm stressed. I mean, sorry, my parents fought in the Second World War.
Yeah, I'm frightened of the phone ringing.
Yeah.
Oh,
God,
I can't. Candice, I'm going to leave. How are we going to survive?
You know what they've also...
We're not.
We're
all going to die. We're screwed.
It was also revealed this week that Gen Zers apparently are not drinking much champagne. They don't really like it. They don't really drink alcohol very much. For the first time ever in the history of Great Britain, champagne sales are down because apparently the Gen Zers don't like
They
champagne.
can't answer the phone. They don't... None of them have...
They're not having sex with each other. They never go out.
They'd be too emotional,
No, too emotional.
They'd enjoy themselves.
I mean, let me tell you, if
there's
you're
no
trying to
safe
answer the phone,
spaces.
wait till you see what I'm going to do to you. You know, I mean, for God's sake, it's not really surprising, you know.
Michael, to take your point on the champagne, you may recall there was that great speech by Sir Winston Churchill during World War II who said, we need to fight for France, not for the country, but to save the champagne.
Yeah, very true.
Good man.
And
no,
we're
it's
screwed
racist and a white supremacist.
That's right.
I'm sorry, white privilege kicking in there.
Apart from you say to people, by the way, you wouldn't be here today without
let's throw some paint on his statue.
Rachel Reeves said, just on that point, Rachel Reeves says that she's going to get Britain working. I don't know how she's going to get these Gen Zers ultra productive and growing the economy when they can't even do a phone call.
Entitled saps.
Absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, you've got Ryanair for us.
Yes, Ryanair. I'm sure we all have been annoyed with Ryanair at some point when they've decided to scrounge a few quid out of us because your bag was a millimetre too big or something like this. But this is probably the worst you've ever heard from Ryanair. They called the coppers on a woman who ordered £7 worth of snacks on the plane, started tucking into her Pringles before she tapped her card. Her card declined, so she couldn't pay for these Pringles that she tucked into. When the plane landed, the police were waiting for her.
Brilliant.
Because Ryanair, they decided this woman won't give us the £7 that she owes us, and she's already eaten the Pringles, so we'll have to get her arrested for it.
Oh, my God.
We started this show with 256 million quid that we're not getting back from the NHS, but the police have been called over a £7 box of Pringles. I'm finished.
It's this. It's 6 coppers turning up to a guy's house for criticising the women's school, but knife crime,
I mean, who takes the call?
don't worry about
Imagine
that.
the police. Right? I mean, you've had plenty of dealings with them, Will. Professionally speaking.
Well, Michael...
Who takes the call and go, right, what do we need? We've got a...
Mobilise all units.
Got an R360
down
at Gatwick, you know. Well, really? What's going on?
Pringles.
Somebody tried to hijack a plane?
Yeah.
No, somebody hasn't paid for their
Hijack some
Pringles.
Pringles.
Let's have a look at the...
Throwing herself for 10 hours.
Let's have a look at the clip. This is Anne-Marie Murray.
Yes, I do. Hi.
What's your name, sorry?
Anne-Marie Murray.
Anne-Marie.
Oh, we've been called? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. My card isn't working, and we offered to pay, and the card wouldn't work. They tried it 5 times, but this happened before to people in front of us, like in December. That is their card machine, and they admitted to
people who were trapped in the van where it's warmer because it's a bit
What a joke. At
She
a time
offered to
when...
give the Pringles back, but I suppose you don't want them back if you're already...
No, apparently she did. She offered, do you want the rest of the Pringles back? And
Yeah.
they said no.
Because then she could have gone, I'll give you £3.
£3.50.
I've only had half of them.
On the
I think
plane.
I've got PTSD from
I know.
today's
I mean,
show.
it's unbelievable. I mean, we have people going and shoplifting and stealing power tools and
They don't
hundreds
come out
and
for that.
thousands.
No,
Not
no, no,
interested,
no, no,
but
no.
£7, a few Pringles? No, got to
By
go
the
out
way,
for
listen,
that.
I've just
Low-hanging fruit.
I've just discovered that this cake, the 250th anniversary cake, right, is a woke cake. I don't know why Chuck's bought it. It's gluten-free. It says no nuts, no milk, just love.
Sounds delicious.
Oh, no. Live, laugh,
And
laugh.
you can cut out the little sign on the back that says it's enjoyed by everyone. Don't mind
I
what
don't
your
know.
gender is.
There's a lot of white
Peanut
privilege
free,
on the top of that.
milk-free, nut-free,
Fun-free.
free. That's what I'm saying. We'll be back with more on Plank of the Week.
Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Welcome back to Plank of the Week. The final furlong. This is the last bit where I can get to decide who's going to win. And the final furlong is going to be David Lammy, who is, of course, the
always a winner.
secretary.
Yeah.
He seems to be getting bigger every week. I don't know what he's doing.
Send the cake to him. He'll eat it.
He'll eat
He's
that.
going on all these expense
Well,
accounts.
£1 million he spent on private jets so far.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And
There's
having a
some
state
tasty
banquet every
snacks
time
on
he
there.
gets on one. But anyway, the reason he is the plank is, of course, you might remember there were 2 Labour MPs who went to Israel. Apparently on taxpayers' money, decided to go and have a bit of a fact-finding mission, despite the fact that they don't seem to like Israel very much. On my left there is Abtissam Mohammed, born in the Yemen, or Yuan Yang on the right, born in China. Now, people have said to me, how have we got MPs now representing Parliament
that are born in other countries?
That are born in other countries, first generation.
That means Britain's Got Talent as well.
Well, exactly right. So it turns out that Yuan Yang, who used to work for the BBC, you might not be surprised to know, has been quite critical of Israel. And on the Israeli document, when you enter the country, it says that if you've been in any way calling for a boycott of Israel, which they both did, if you've been calling for a boycott of any goods and services coming from the West Bank into Israel, you'll also be sanctioned. You might be questioned. You might not be allowed into the country. It's very clear of all the things that you do. Neither one of these 2 characters, by the way, has had a go at Hamas, has never mentioned that Hamas were a terrible terrorist organisation. All they've done is called for Israel to stop killing children, and they've kept using the Hamas figures for how many people are dead. David Lammy comes out when they were refused and said it's absolutely outrageous that they weren't allowed into, they're parliamentarians from this country, not allowed into another country. This is the same David Lammy who called for Benjamin Netanyahu to be arrested if he ever came to Britain on war crimes charges. And, you know, absolutely.
It's insane. If you've ever been, I don't know whether you guys have, if you go to Israel, I've been into Tel Aviv a number of times and various parts. You go into Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv, it's probably one of the hardest airports to either arrive at or leave from, even if you've been in the country. Their security is so stringent. But the whole issue, they will check social media. They will check everything they possibly can.
This is the thing that I thought.
And I'm so pleased they kicked him out.
Well, isn't it refreshing to have a country say, we're a sovereign democracy and we've decided we don't want you here.
Yeah, quite right.
They stood up and said, they're right, you're not coming in. Imagine if we did that in this country, but we let every bugger in. That's half the problem. I salute them for doing that.
This is part of the reason why the Labour government couldn't understand it, because they've never heard of anything.
No,
actually doesn't stop people
But David Lammy, I mean, he just shows his degrees of ignorance and stupidity, being the foreign minister, to know that certain countries you don't go into. I mean, one of the things you could, there are certain countries in the Middle East you can't go into anyway, prior to the conflict with an Israeli stamp,
got a Saudi stamp,
or the other way around.
You can't get to Israel. Same thing.
And the lefties, they're all saying, oh, but don't you believe in free speech, you lot on the right? You absolute hypocrites. Surely the Israelis should allow
the lefties when Labour were in last time, also banned Geert Wilders from coming in from the Netherlands, who was an elected member of the Dutch Parliament, right?
And
they also said nothing when China sanctioned Ian Duncan Smith and various other people from going to China.
Yeah, and didn't David Lammy say, oh, Trump cannot be in this country?
Exactly.
The big baby balloon. I think he basically led the parade, right?
Yeah.
So,
Keir Starmer said he didn't want to have dinner with him. So, you know, there we are. Anyway, listen, we're out of time, so I'm going to have to pick a winner. I don't know. It's very tough this week. You know, I really think it's very tough. I'm sort of minded to go with Nottingham University.
I like that one.
I also think...
Telephobia, Mike.
But I also think... I'm sorry, I agree. Don't get upset. I thought her Ryanair thing is blindingly brilliant.
Actually, Ryanair's quite good, but I think telephobia.
Yeah, but I think telephobia. I mean, it's a new phobia.
I think Chloe gets silver, though.
Get an honourable mention. I think honourable mention for Chloe. No question.
Candice and I just shouldn't bother telling her.
No, I enjoyed the fact that you were being driven more and more crazed by the time the show was finished. I think you've lost your mind altogether. So, Plank of the Week goes to Nottingham University, Nottingham College, for teaching children how to make phone calls, right? Here's a phone, here's a plank.
There's a cake.
Well done. And there's a cake, which is woke. I don't want to throw that, it'll make a mess. Anyway, thank you to Jeremy, thank you to Candice, thank you to Will, thank you to Chloe. We'll see you next time for Plank of the Week.